The term soldier's heart was first used in the 1860s to describe a group of symptoms experienced by soldiers in the American Civil War. The term was popularized by Dr. Jacob Mendez da Costa, a Philadelphia physician who published his findings in 1871. Now, the first reports of soldier's heart were made in 1862 after the brutal fighting in the Peninsula Campaign. Da Costa studied a group of soldiers in a Philadelphia hospital and observed a pattern of cardiac symptoms. He called this condition soldier's heart or irritable heart. Now, these symptoms included rapid pulse, anxiety, trouble breathing, headaches, and even chest pain. DaCosta's work linked the symptoms of soldier's heart to what is now known as post traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. From 1860 until now, not much has changed in treatment, but big government, the VA, and the 28,000 psychiatrists in the US are about to get a wake up call. It's time to take care of our veterans. Joining us today to discuss new treatments for our war vets, police, and first responders is Russ Scala of Scala Precision Health. Russ, it's so wonderful to have you back for another powerful and impactful conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, that was, this is personal.
It is personal. We're going to get into that because you actually are not only an expert in treating PTSD, you went through that. Can you talk about your experience as a first responder attached to SWAT team?
Yeah, like anybody, any young soldier, I was, didn't join the military, but I wanted to make a difference.
Okay.
So, I started to work in the emergency room in high school and, was one of the first paramedics to hit the streets, and, obviously, I didn't understand what that was gonna do to my body over time. Being on those horrific scenes, gunshot wounds, auto accidents, people dying in your arms, they didn't train me on how to take care of that, right? So, I went down the road that most people go down. I isolated myself. I had a deal with depression. I was drinking a lot, and, I had to cycle out of that. So, I think there's a lot of heroes out there that I work with, and, this is for them. Alright.
Beautiful. I feel it. I can hear in your voice. I see that this is personal. We're going to get into that. This is an important conversation.
Yeah, like I said, we got 22 vets, killing themselves every day. The bureaucracies are treating them with 5 different medications. It's a joke. We could do better.
And as I mentioned in the intro, this has been around since the 18th. I mean, it's been around since before then, but we learned about this since the 1860s. What did physicians miss back then that they're still not getting right today, that we're still not addressing?
Well, if you read a book called The War on Nerves, they studied what happens to soldiers in battle. They knew the physiological symptoms, but even in World War One, they just started treating the head.
Mm,
And they moved psychiatrists to the front lines of battle. You know why they moved psychiatrists to the front lines of battle?
why is that?
To give the guys somebody to talk to and to get them back in the battle faster.
Mm,
Yeah. So malingering, because you can't see PTSD, because you can't see internal trauma damaging the body, the soldier looks normal. So a lot of soldiers that couldn't handle this would want to leave and not fight, and they were vilified. A lot of them were run off, and they were considered weak. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, the literature's out there.
yeah.
You got to be a man. You got to man up. Well, killing somebody and doing a close proximity kill, that's not normal. Anybody that does that is never right for the rest of their lives. And we have people saying, "Thank you for your service." You have no idea what these guys been through. Now, I never been in battle, but I've been on some most horrific scenes you could ever imagine. Those things are still imprinted in my brain, and I've been dealing with PTSD and soldiers and first responders. Some of my best friends with are police officers and detectives. They don't get answers at the end of the day. Like I just met one of my cop buddies last week, and I was reading his blood work, and we were talking about what his doctor can do. He's 56 years old.
Mm.
He worked with me in the street, 20 years in the street, and he's got 5 doctors he's got to see at 56. And I looked at what they were doing to him. I'm like, anyway, we got him. We're getting him straightened out, and that's the whole. That's what we want to do here, is give the vets, the first responders. You guys have an option. Okay, your doctors don't know what's going on physiologically with you. If you Google the treatment protocols for PTSD right now, there are about 6 different medication, including sleeping pills. Nobody's looking at the physiology. We know the gut is the second brain.
Hmm.
So if your gut's out of balance, it's going to affect your brain chemistry. We know that low thyroid can impact your behavior.
Uh,
How come nobody's looking at, you're looking at that as a treatment protocol? So that's where we are. So I see this as a paradigm shift. I see the content we're creating right now. If it gets into a vet's hands, a first responder's hands, I want him to Google this research, look it up, come to the Russ Scala YouTube channel, and hold your doctor to a higher standard or call us. We'll get you out of the railroad tracks.
You discussed those 6 standard medications, one of them being sleeping pills. I can imagine one of them is just antidepressants,
Right.
kind of the go-to when for those struggling with PTSD. Can you discuss the difference of antidepressant treatment versus hormonal balance treatment?
Yeah, I mean, they really still don't know how antidepressants work.
Mhm.
An antidepressant really just treats the symptom. If you look back at psychiatry in the early years, the guy that won a Nobel Prize called Alfred Monez did an ice pick lobotomy. He would stick a rod underneath your eyelid here and puncture your brain and scramble your brain. And because the patient would become subdued after that, obviously,
Yeah.
he won the Nobel Prize for the pick lobotomy, and they did it for about, I don't know, 7 years. You could look it up. Ice lobotomy, look up Alfred Monez. And I think one of the last persons to have it was somebody in the Kennedy family
Mm.
to have an ice pick lobotomy. And then what do they do after that? They moved to electrical shock therapy. There's a keeper. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. So they go from that, and then instead of looking at the physiology, instead of looking at treatments, they go from the pick lobotomy, electrical shock therapy, and then they go to uh, like the medication, the DMS-5, the book, the Bible for the psychiatrist that has bipolar depression.
All the things,
There's
yeah.
no blood test for that. The DMS-5, the book, that's the Bible for 28,000 psychiatrists in this country,
Mhm.
all right? That book and those labels like bipolar are designed and put in that book by a committee, no
Mhm.
lab work. So you can understand the confusion out there. A person walks into a pristine institution, talks to their doctor. The doctor says, "Well, I recommend an antidepressant." Are you kidding me? There's more you could do. Hey, doc, drill down on his thyroid. Look at his testosterone levels. If it's
They're
if
not concerned about what's happening below the head. It's
Exactly. So, like I said, you just read that intro. Very good job. 1860, we knew there was physiological symptoms that affected soldiers. We knew um, during the Civil War that soldiers were affected. Uh, Back in I think it was 600 BC, Athenian soldiers were experiencing PTSD. One specific example I read: a soldier saw his friend get killed in front of him, and he went blind. So we could track all this through history, but nobody's making a move to offer the vets something else besides these medications, antidepressants and antipsychotics. It's it, it's psychotic. It's like you can do more. Where are the outside the box thinkers? Where are the innovators in this? You know what I mean?
absolutely.
They need to step up.
And there's a term associated with PTSD, flash bulb image.
Yeah,
How at first explain that for anyone watching who maybe isn't familiar with that term and how that relates back to the post traumatic stress disorder.
okay. So real quick, if I gave you my phone number, you know what I mean. If I gave you my phone number and I said it's 407-342-6363, that gets processed into the hippocampus, and then it goes to long-term storage, and you have to repeat it a bunch of times before you lock it away and remember my phone number just, just
From
call
memory.
yeah, just from memory.
Yep.
Okay, in a traumatic situation, a flashbulb memory, you don't go through that process. If you kill somebody, if somebody gets shot right in front of you, if somebody loses their head or commits suicide, that flashbulb image is imprinted on your brain for a lifetime.
Immediately.
Yeah, for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Doesn't go away. That's why soldiers that are in battle, soldiers that have killed people, the close proximity kills are the worst for flashbulb memories. If somebody's flying a drone and blows up a village, it's not as intense, but they still go home with bad thoughts. If you're boots on the ground, whether you're a paramedic, a police officer, or a war veteran, Navy SEAL, whatever, and you're you do a close proximity kill with your team, that flashbulb image doesn't go away. And you got to understand the brain chemistry. A lot of people tell me, Russ, I can't shut my brain off. Everybody cycles thoughts at night.
Mhm.
They try to relive experiences and they try to come up with innovative things to help them get through the next day. We have little Pac-Men in our brain. It's called monoamine oxidase. So those little Pac-Men, when we're stressed out, eat up the excess adrenaline. As we get older, past 30, 40, and 50, those Pac-Men disappear. So if something traumatic happens to us or we
Sticks with us.
yeah, it sticks with us and you keep cycling thoughts at night. One of the most important things I do for veterans and police officers is try to get them to sleep first. I try to get
Mhm.
them to sleep first. I don't mess with their diet. I don't. You got to meet them where they are. The physicians that treat war veterans, they don't understand their metabolism. It's a completely alien metabolism. A doctor may see 8 people a day and then a war vet. He looks at the blood work. Go, oh well, your blood work's normal. Must be all in your head. No, it's not. We need to optimize their physiology. There's something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gonadal axis that is impacted by stress. Physical, mental, and emotional stress suppress all our hormone levels. So you can't just treat a person with a drug in isolation.
Okay.
You have to look at the HPAG axis and treat that system together. It works. People out there that are doing it. I'm not the only one. There are vets out there that have went down this road of nutritional hormonal replacement and they have recovered. Okay. There's a YouTube show that Sean Ryan does where he interviews vets and he listens to their story. Sean is doing a great service for
Mm.
for the military people as well as first responders because this guy was boots on the ground. Sean Ryan trained Keanu Reeves for shooting and John Wick, and then he got so frustrated, he started his own YouTube channel because people really didn't know what the vets were going through. And he understands they were killing 22 people. Vets were committing suicide. 8,000 suicides a year. Does anybody think we need to look at a different training program? And when you look at the bureaucracy, they go, well, maybe we should try drug combinations. There's still not, it's like we got an MRI machine and they're not using MRI machines. It's that crazy. And I want to make everybody start asking their doctor questions because this goes for family members. If you go through a divorce, you experience the same stress as a war vet, just not as intense,
Sure.
but you still hit the same systems. If a mother loses a child, she's going to go through those same things. So this is across the board.
It's not just our first responders or
Exactly.
police. It
Yeah, it's
kind of runs the gambit.
we all go through stress.
Mhm.
All of us, you and I are biochemically unique. You may handle certain situations better than me,
Right.
and that's what needs to be looked at. But the doctors, because they're handcuffed by insurance companies, they got to see 20 people a day. How can you really drill down on somebody and find out what's wrong with them? Here's something else. Trauma constantly affects your physiology. Okay. Your brain is very metabolically active. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day. When you're involved in a traumatic event, or you're a war veteran or a first responder that's had 20 years on the job, your system is always ramped up. You're always ramped up. You're always hyper alert. You look at the even me. I go into a restaurant. What do? I sit with my back to the wall,
Yeah.
just
You
just
have to be
just
able to see
just
the
out of
door
habit.
and see everything.
I was with my girlfriend one time. We were going up to stay at this hotel. I go, why are we going up to the 15th floor? Because a fire truck can only go up to the 10th. I mean, that's how
Wow.
you think. And again, normal people integrating into society, they go, what
Those things
well,
just aren't going.
Russ, what are you
Yeah.
worrying about that for? Just calm down. There was a scene in the movie with Jeremy Renner when he was a bomb expert. I forget what it was called, but he was back from Iraq as a bomb. He would defuse bombs, and he was in the cereal aisle, and he had a moment because he's looking at all the cereals. And he's like, Jesus, like what? Does all this really matter? I mean, there was a good scene of a flashback. So, when I was going through that, I was working 96-hour shifts because I wanted to pay off a house. I wasn't getting any sleep. And that environment, believe it or not, there's an adrenaline addiction out there. When I wanted to stop drinking, I was like, I didn't want to drink tonight. So I call my battalion chief and say, hey, let me come in and run some rescue calls. That was bad. And I look on it back when I was in my 20s, that wasn't really good behavior. So I could relate with these guys big time. They're not being treated properly. Everybody sort of throws their hands up in the air. The senators and congressmen don't know what it's like because a lot of them haven't been in battle. But a lot of the congressmen now are ex-war veterans, Navy SEALs.
Yes.
I mean, and they're making a big difference. God love them.
I want to discuss the treatments you've developed. I mean, we touched on, you said your very first step is getting them to sleep. We talked a little bit about nutritional hormone balance replacements, but what are those treatments that you've developed at Scala Precision Health?
Well, I mean, I didn't develop them. I gather the research, and what I know is when you're in physical, mental, or emotional stress, and you elevate your stress hormones, you suppress all your hormone levels. So physiologically, most of the war veterans and first responders, we saw this back in the 1990s. They were low in testosterone, estrogen, thyroid. They were low in their adrenal glands. Their adrenal glands may have been shot. And then me being a triathlete for 20 years, I used to take triathletes into doctors' offices because, again, here's another alien metabolism. These people are training 40 hours a week and they're having symptoms, and the doctor doesn't know what to do. And then he would get upset with me because I was acting as a patient advocate. I go, Doc, I got 20 triathletes complaining of the same thing. Why don't you run this lab work? Instead of saying, okay, let me take a look at this, you know what most of them say? Did you go to medical school? I'm like, I'm trying to help somebody. These guys are being assholes, right? So I deal with that all the time. No big deal. It's part of the job. I mean, like I said, if I'm still doing this full time, trying to get people answers, if I let that stuff bother me, I wouldn't get out of bed.
And as important as it is to be discussing this between you and I think even seeing a firsthand story or, experience, someone who's gone through this is another powerful way. And I believe we have a video that we can show.
Yeah, yeah. This video is really important because this guy was a detective. He was a war veteran and he worked with a psychiatrist, amazing, and he refused antidepressants, and his message is very powerful.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Rick Sabala, ex-military, uh, ex-private military contractor, worked for it, diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, stress syndrome. Well, because of my background, when I came back, as many others coming back from their tours, we had, or I had what was called post-traumatic stress disorder. And after going through my Navy doctor for so long, which is a pretty good friend of mine, um, he started prescribing all kinds of drugs, which I was very clear telling him that I would not take these drugs because I consider them to be poison. And we have a code on our teams is that we deal with the pain, no pain, no gain. So I was measuring the gain versus the pain. And I told my doctor I'd rather go through the pain, which was very emotional, as it was physical. And and I told him I'd rather go through this emotional pain than to take all this medication. He said to me, "That's okay, that's fine with me, but I still have to prescribe them because he needed to cover his six. He needs to cover his back." He says there is a file that's going to be reviewed, and I'm treating you, so I'm going to prescribe them. Don't take them. That's fine with me. So I said, no problem. Things kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'm pulling over on the I-4. I'm crying like a little girl, and I'm fluctuating between extreme anger and extreme sadness. And for all you guys coming back from your tours, you know what I'm talking about. We all go through the same thing. We start crying. We don't know why we're crying. We're extremely angry. We don't know at what. We don't know at who. We can't deal with civilians. We can't transition into civilian life. We are on a short fuse, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, hyper state of alertness. You can't do that. He's gonna eat at you, and he was eating at me to the point where, and I don't know if I should say this, but to the point where I pull over, I pull a gun on these five guys that were, what cut me off in on the road and actually follow me, and I pulled the car over, and I got out of the car, and when I realized what I had done, nothing happened, thank God. But when I realized what I had done, I called my doctor on the phone and I said, "You need to put me in a hospital." He said, "No, because if I put you in a hospital, I will lose control over you, and you're not crazy. We need to go through this together." He's still, I love that guy. He's got a great heart. but he was just, the usual doctor trying to do his best with what he's got. Well, then, as luck would have it, I met Rusty here at the cigar store, and we started talking. It took us about a year to build a rapport. He was cautious of me. I was cautious of him, and he talked to me about everything that he was doing, and I took it with a grain of salt. Like, okay, everybody's doing something, and this is what he's doing. But one day, this lady came into the shop, and it was about my time for me to close the cigar store. And the lady started, she was kind of sad, and Russ started asking her question. We started talking, and when she started talking about the way she was feeling, Russ started giving her solutions and pinpointing the way that she was feeling. And I'm watching all this in disbelief because she's crying her heart out, and she's looking at Ross like, "How could you understand this?" And she said, "My doctor. I've been with my doctor for over a year, and I don't understand. I mean, how he doesn't know this, and you know it." So I locked the store. We stayed open for another 30, 45 minutes, and I saw Ross giving this lady all the information without any regards for money or how much it's going to cost or nothing. Nothing. He was just genuinely helping this lady. And I'm sitting in the background watching the whole thing, and I went like, this guy is for real. This guy's heart is where he needs to be. He truly wants to help people, and that's how we got involved. And he talked to me. I went and got my blood work done. He came back. I started on his program with the testosterone and ACG, and he started taking care of me. It's like I always said, you're like my drill sergeant. Wherever direction you point, I will follow you, brother. And he started taking care of me. And the next time my Navy doctor saw me, he was blown out of the. I mean, he looked at me and went like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Why?" He says to me, "You look great. I lost over 50 pounds." He says, "You're in great shape. Your emotions are under control. I feel extremely balanced." I told him. People cut me off when I'm driving on the freeway. Hey, I give him a pass. No big deal. Whatever happens, hey, I'll take it easy because that anger, that sadness, that fluctuation between one and the other, it's gone. I don't feel angry anymore. I feel great about myself. I feel good. I feel very happy with what's going on in my life. And for all you guys coming back from your tours, look into my eyes. I understand what you're going through, and you know what I went through. You know when you pull over and you start crying and you don't know why you're crying. When you have no patience to deal with your wife, your kids, your neighbors, civilians, you're done. I got to tell you this. There is hope, okay? And there is a cure for that. So follow what I'm telling you. Take it easy, okay? And if you can give us a call, you can give Ross a call, you can give this program a chance, do it for yourself and for your family. Thanks.
For more information on Scala Precision Health, you can head over to scalaprecisionhealth.com and the Russ Scala YouTube channel, where a wealth of free knowledge awaits you. Thank you for watching.